IITA gives to this very important program as a support to the CGIAR AFDB initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, let me recognize the presence of the Deputy Director General for Partnerships for Development, Dr. Ken Dashil. Please, a round of applause to Dr. Kenton Dashil. We also have the Deputy Director General for Corporate Services. I could see her over there in person of Hilda Cooper from IITA. Thank you so much. I will move quickly by recognizing all the directors of IITA who are present here for taking time to be part of this meeting, and also the scientists. And I'll move quickly to the African Development Bank team. We have Dr. Martin Fregena, who is the Director for Agriculture and Agro-Industry Department from the AFDB with us. Please, a round of applause to Martin. And please, may I at this point also take this opportunity to congratulate you for the new position that you have. Please, let's give him a round of applause as a mark of congratulations for the new position. We also have other members of the team. We have Dr. Jonas Chiano, who is more or less one of the visionaries, the pioneer people that worked on the TAAT program. He is the Chief Agricultural Economist and TAAT Program Coordinator. Please, a round of applause to Dr. Chiano. I will move quickly and recognize Dr. Patrick Agboman, who is the Sector Manager for Agriculture and Agro-Industry from the AFDB, also with us. Please, a round of applause to Patrick. And also we have other officials, Mr. Modi Taruni, Mr. Mohammed Tolba, and Mr. Lewis Bangwell, all from the African Development Bank. Please, let's encourage them with a round of applause. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on the list also, we have development partners. We have our colleagues from World Bank, AGRA, USAID, IFAD, and Rockefeller. But I see some names here that I would like to take this opportunity to recognize, and one of those is Dr. Fade Ndiame. No, we have Dr. Joe DeVries from AGRA. Is he around? Oh, thank you so much. A round of applause to him. And then, of course, we have Dr. Ndiame from AGRA, who is the AGRA Regional Head for West Africa. A round of applause to him also. We have Dr. Malu from the International Fund for Agricultural Development in the house. Please, a round of applause to Dr. Malu for taking time to come for this meeting. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there are several people on the program, and I will be recognizing them as time goes on. But I would like to use this opportunity to invite us to stand and feel a bit relaxed and introduce yourself to the next person by close to you so that we can know each other within the next 3 minutes. Thank you so much. Hello, ladies.
You know what they say? You're old. You forget to zip it. Then when you are young, you forget to zip down your beard. When you get old, you zip down, you forget to zip up.
Yeah.
I try to manage the time very well because journals may even need a little bit more time. But that's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I know. Even
So
maybe a couple of nights to say we're here for this long.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. They actually. All right.
Have you finished? Please, as you are speaking, you have to tell people to be careful of their laptops and phones. Just make an announcement, just take care of it. I mean, it's good. We have CCTV and others, but at least just mention it casually. Okay?
Yeah, I would say that
It's safe, but take care of your personal effects, phones and your laptops.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, please, may we have our seats? Thank you so much. Please, may we have our seats? Permit me, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to invite Dr. Kenton Dashiel for the welcome address. Please, a round of applause to Dr. Ken as he comes over. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Godwin, thank you very much. I think we've had a wonderful welcome already, and I really am excited about the atmosphere that I feel in the room right now. There's an atmosphere of enthusiasm, and there's an atmosphere of partnership and cooperation. So that's just fantastic. You know, if I could search the world and bring a group of people together to make plans for transforming agriculture in Africa, this is the team I would pick. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a lot of work in the next 3 days, and there are going to be a lot of good presentations, but mine is going to be short and sweet. Well, I hope sweet. While we will really focus in on specific goals for this workshop you'll hear about in a little while, still, one of the things that will be left for us to seriously do is to go into countries and do country planning. The real success of our work will be when we can work together with teams in a country that align perfectly with the goals, objectives of that country, what the national programs have put together, what the governments see as priorities for agriculture. So when our team here works together with all those that are participating in that country, the government programs, the World Bank programs, the IFAD programs, etc., the AGRA programs, when we are all working together in harmony and aligned, that is when we're going to see some great accomplishments. And let's remember, a key member of that team is the private sector. They must be on board with us and really, in many ways, leading the transformation of agriculture. So let's remember the regional member countries are key. Let's remember, as we move down the road, delivering at scale is key. Delivering at scale is key. And remember, delivering at scale is key. On top of that, let's remember implementation of our plans. It takes a lot of dedication, attention to detail to make sure implementation of plans are achieved. So let's focus on that. And remember how I started off, that if I had to select a group of people that can transform agriculture in Africa, this is the group. But we need a lot more than who is in this room right now, because probably 98% of us here are, I would call us program specialists. But we have to have a strong team of people doing the finances, people doing the accounting, people doing the procurement, people doing administration. So let's remember, we have to develop those strong teams to partner with us so that we can deliver. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you great success throughout this week. I will be with you every minute of the way. Thank you very much.
Please, a round of applause to Dr. Ken for that wonderful welcome, recognizing the diversity and the importance of the selection of the team that is here. Please, let's give him a round of applause again. And I think if there's going to be another venue for a meeting like this, it's still going to be in this conference center, IITA. Am I correct? Thank you so much, Ken, for that. I'd like to invite Dr. Martin Fregenen to come and give us the opening remarks. Please, a round of applause to Dr. Martin Fregenen.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all here. Like Ken said, and Joe had also noticed earlier, there is good energy in the room. I really like the energy in the room. It's very good, very, very satisfying, very encouraging. I bring you greetings from the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akandeshino, and from the Vice President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Jennifer Blanke. Jennifer would have loved to be here, but she's with the President in Davos of the World Economic Forum. They all believe very strongly that the regional technology delivery infrastructure that is represented by this platform is the way to turn around the underperforming agricultural sector in Africa. But before I give my opening remarks, I want to first of all thank you all for coming. Less than 2 weeks after the first inception meeting, I see almost everybody who was with us in Abidjan for that meeting here today. Thank you so much for coming. We also have new participants from the NARES. Thank you so much for coming. We have Jody Rees, the Vice President of AGRA, and we have Dr. Malu from IFAD. Thank you so much for coming. It's really good to have people with such long, proven experience on working with the private sector and with governments to reach out to millions of farmers like Jody Rees and Dr. Malu, accompanying us on this very important journey. I also want to thank very much Dr. Fadel Jame, also from AGRA. He was with us in Abidjan. He's here with us again today. he has also brought with him Dr. Makinde and another old friend. We go back, what, 30 years? Yeah, thank you all for coming. These are very important partners, and we look forward to working closely with them. I want to thank also our offices in the regions and the offices from those offices, Mr. Tolba, Mr. Moldy, and Mr. Lewis Bangwe. Thank you all for coming. You are very important to what we're doing here today, because we have to tie all our lending on agriculture in the countries to TAAT, both lending for productivity increases and lending for value chain development. This is always it begins. In this room, you have the providers of the technologies. You have the people that own proven technologies to raise productivity in Africa. And thank you so much for coming. So here is my very short remarks. First of all, I want to say that all of you are just great. I want to give you a round of applause to each and every person here, please. Because less than a week ago, we asked members of the regional technology delivery infrastructure to produce a concept note on how you see the compact, what we call a commodity technology delivery compact, an association of technology providers, countries, private sector, how you see this compact working to scale proven technologies to farmers. And in less than a week, you all delivered. I'm really impressed. A total of 13 concept notes were produced by the 9 priority technologies and by the Enable Youth and also by the Folamiwom and the policy cross-cutting themes. You guys did fantastic. Thank you so much. We'll be reviewing those concept notes here. Some very exciting things I saw. Clearly, many of the members of the regional technology delivery infrastructure capture the essence of TAAT. The number of beneficiaries was fantastic. The number of countries was really good. Others are still getting there. We will have a lot of cross-fertilization of ideas and also of thoughts during the sessions of presenting the concept notes. And definitely everybody will come to where we want you to be. But I really want to express our gratitude for that. Thank you so much. I also want to thank very much IITA for hosting us. This was put together in less than 10 days. Chris, like Dr. Saginga said, you're a magician. Thank you so much, Chris. Please give Chris a round of applause. Yeah. Finally, so that we can get on with the meeting. Last time we met in Abidjan, I told you a story about how Dr. Norman Borlaug, who was a breeder in the Rockefeller Foundation Mexican Wheat Cooperation Program, we go to the Indian Parliament, and he will interrupt the Parliament, shouting seeds, credits, markets for farmers. And people thought he was a madman, but he finally caught the attention of the government. And the government invested heavily in scaling up the new dwarf varieties of wheat from Mexico. And it transformed food production in India. Today I'll tell you another story. It's a true story also. This one is about Brazil. In the 1970s, Brazil was importing so much food. There was a young professor then. His name was Alison Polinelli, from the state of Mato Grosso. He was a scientist who had been working very quietly with his colleagues to understand how to make the very vast but infertile central part of Brazil, called the savannas or the cerrados of Brazil, to make it yield food. Almost nothing could grow there. It was almost like barren. They had been working quietly, making some progress. Finally, they were able to solve the problems of the soils, solve the problems of the acidity, and they convinced a cooperative in nearby Sao Paulo to start growing some crops, in the savannas, in the cerrados. Eventually, they got to 39,000 hectares. But the cerrados is 200 million hectares. How do you go from 39,000 to 200 million hectares? So what they did, a group of them banded together with Dr. Alison Polinelli as the head. They went to the central government, they went to the president, directly the president, and they said, Mr. President, we are importing so much food. It's putting pressure on our currency. We cannot continue like this. We have the answer for you. We can turn this vast area of barren land into productive agricultural land. All we want you to do is 3 things for us. Give us the resources to, in the very first year, subsidize everybody who will be, doing the soil amendment, soil corrections of lime and other things, phosphates to correct the soils. We want you to also give us land reforms so that people can come from anywhere and take over this land that is not being used based upon, the laws of Brazil. And lastly, we want you to give us good extension systems. They convinced the president. And the president, at the point, was putting 6% of Brazil's GDP into development of agriculture. Today, the same Cerrados has more than 50 million hectares cultivated to forages, to soybean, to maize. It's a $100 billion sector, all from one single man's initiative, one single man. He later became Minister of Agriculture. He later won the World Food Prize. But today, I see the same thing happening here in Africa. You are the technology providers. You are the guys who have convinced yourself and convinced hundreds of farmers, maybe not millions, but hundreds of farmers, that you have the right technologies to get this done. I want you to now go and convince the governments, working with the donor partners, Gates Foundation, AGRA, convince them that you have what it takes to turn around the $35 billion food imports that Africa is doing today. You have what it takes. I want you to talk to the private sector people, the seed company, and say, we have what it takes. I want you to talk to the extension people, we have what it takes. And with the backing of the donors community, we will achieve that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and welcome again.
A round of applause to Dr. Martins Afregene. Thank you so much for reminding us about the commitment of the bank to agriculture, and also reminding us again that the next phase of funding for agriculture from the bank will be in the framework of TAAT. I think this is something that is very important for us to take note of. And of course, the need for each and every one of us to see how we bring on board the policymakers and other value chain actors so that we can see the realization of agricultural transformation in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, let me invite a member from the World Bank, if we have any World Bank representative in the house, do we? From the World Bank. Okay, we'll move quickly to AGRA for a 2-minute speech, which is a message, as is being indicated here. AGRA, please. Please, let's encourage him with a round of applause as he comes over. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, on behalf of Agnes Kalibata, our president, I'm just very happy to be here with my colleagues, Fadel Njame and Kende Makinde. We are AGRA, and we are very excited about the emergence of TAAT as a partner initiative for ag transformation in Africa. We have been watching the development of TAAT since its very beginning. It was given a lot of prominence when we met with our good friend Akin Adesina, the president of African Development Bank, a little over a year ago. And our response has been from the beginning, we are open for business. We are eager to blend our resources with those of TAAT our experiences, our personnel, the technologies that we're aware of, and I guess most of all, as Martin has said, our experience with working with the private sector. So I'm looking around the room and seeing so many familiar faces, and that makes me happy. I think this is really a new day for African agriculture. Congratulations on getting your first round of funding. I know that that wasn't easy, but you're now going, and we want to be part of this. I'll have more to say in just a few minutes, but once again, thank you for including us. Thank you for bringing us over here, and we are eager to be as useful as we possibly can be. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was the Vice President from Agra, Dr. Joe DeVries. Thank you so much for those nice comments from you and Agra. Let me invite Dr. Malu from the International Fund for Agricultural Development for his message. Thank you. A round of applause to Dr. Malu, please.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I'd like to appreciate the invitation from Chris, and I'm here by default because actually the invitation was to our Vice President who couldn't make it, and as usual, I am always at the right place at the right time, and I take advantage. Secondly, last time I stood here, it was about TAAT, and the Sanginga assured me, and remember I come from the Sahel of East of Kenya, he assured that he has got holes, water holes everywhere. I'm glad the water holes are there. I believe I'll be water secure. Thank you very much. Now, coming here, I'd say that you'll allow me about 4 or 5 minutes. If we are a little bit behind, we are doing planning, but if we are still not on board. But it is not because we don't support TAAT. No, 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 no. Let me begin by, let's recap something here. I got the document from Chris only this week. I have gone through it. I like it. Why do I like it? I'm sure you guys have written this document. Paragraph 1.57. The challenges highlighted about scaling up to adoptions is what are the same challenges from IFAD we have, and we would like to sort them out. There's no question about that. 2, the issue actually which excited me was the fact that African Development Bank has seen that these national boundaries that makes crop varieties testing so expensive in a world where even the governments have got limited resources, something should be done. I can tell you something, Martin. Thank you very much. I hope we can tell these African governments that when we do testing in one country, it can be rolled out in the other. A very good example is International Rice Research Institute. If you take a variety of rice in Nepal, you release it in India, in Bangladesh. Why can't we do the same? Thank you very much. The third one is paragraph 1.71, expected impact. It is in line with what IFAD wants. Now, value added of TAAT, the objectives. The objectives of TAAT cohere with the objectives of IFAD, word by word. Either you read from us or we read from you. Whatever it is, who cares? We've got the same problem. However, let me say what the issue with IFAD is. When the letter came, it went to the Vice President. He read it. He couldn't make it. He sent it to the directors. The directors, for some strange reason, they all wrote and said, Malu should go. And then we had a very good communication with Chris here about administrative issues, but we sorted them out. The first question is this. IFAD has got a regular annual non-lending program under which TAAT would fall. We are working closely with the CGIAR centers. As we talk right now, I have been given the responsibility by the president to discuss with the CGIAR to come up with a formal partnership agreement which will complement our technical competencies. And by this, what we would be wanting to do is, if we've got a problem, for example, we've got investment in Nigeria, we would look at the value chain and write to the CGIAR center with that mandate. Let's assume cassava. We'll just write to Dr. Sanginga and tell him we've got this project, we'd like it developed. Could you give us a quotation? And then we go ahead. Given that, I'm asking myself, if I went back to IFAD and I convinced and I told them that we should join TAAT, they'll ask me, what is the value added by joining TAAT? We are already trying to do this. So that is something that Martin and your group will have a discussion about. Two, when you look at the way our non-lending program operates, actually we've got a clearing house, but internal, which is chaired by the vice president. It has got a chief, but our reviewers are about 12 international experts strewn around the world. 3 of them are from Independent Science Partnership Council of the CGIAR. Any proposal that comes to us in support of our country programs must go through the sieve of those. You've got a clearing house, we have got a clearing house. It is chaired by the vice president. And when we have all made all the decisions and it is agreed, whenever they come up with, we've got 3 colors, red, amber, and green. All the projects are rated. And when they get that, the entire session is chaired by the president of IFAD, who will say, let the funds go. So the issue is very simple. TAAT, Martin will have to have a discussion. We have to see how you can fit, or we can fit into what we are doing. We have got annual resources which come every year, and it is quite substantial. For this year, our priorities are research for development, rural transformation, youth, extension, exactly what is in TAAT. So, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the problem, it is a challenge to Martin, if you enthuse me, I will go back, I'll sit down and do what I do, I'll write a very good report, I'll go and brief them, and I'll tell them, this is what African Development Bank is doing, and this is where we fit. As of now, I'll say, let me sit and watch. I'm sorry, you are planning, I'm not even in yet. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malo, for giving us some insights into what IFAD is already doing. And I think the team here will look closely into some of the ideas that you have thrown up. Ladies and gentlemen, let me invite Betty Kibara, who is an associate director with Rockefeller, for her message. Thank you so much. A round of applause to her, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a little cold just in case my voice doesn't sound the best. But thank you so much, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually my pleasure to be here because I was here about 2 years ago when we were discussing the earlier parts of discussion of TAAT. And as you know, throughout the Rockefeller Foundation's history, we have really had powerful results in science, in technology, innovation, and promoting the African Green Revolution, the Green Revolution in Asia, in Latin America, and in Africa. And some of them really would include the rice and wheat varieties, which I think have been spoken here about, that were pioneered by Norman Borlaug. We are also pleased to have supported establishment of key important institutions, including IITA, TAAT, CIMIT, AGRA, among many others who are here. And I also believe a good percentage of people who benefited through their PhD programs and master's studies were also supported by the Rockefeller Foundation. Now, building on what we have done with AGRA and with our long history in agriculture, 2 years ago we actually launched an initiative known as YieldWise, which is a $130 million initiative to reduce food loss and representative value chain. And so far we have worked with about 100,000 farmers in 3 countries, in Tanzania with the maize farmers, in Kenya the mango farmers, in Nigeria we're working with tomato farmers and cassava. So the YieldWise model has taken technology as one of the biggest components, but we're also integrating other important components like financing, training, and access to market. So as I finish, I want to share with you about 6 highlights or lessons that we have learned in implementing the technology components of the value chain that I think will be very important as you implement TAAT. So my first one is around the role of the end market and private sector partnership. You must begin with the end in mind. You can have all the good seeds, you can have high production of maize and wheat and every other crop that we are promoting, but if we really don't have a good market and we don't know what that market is, then you not gain the value chain benefits that are there. We have also found the agro-dealer networks to be key and viable system for delivery of technologies. And I know it was worked different in different countries, but like the case of Tanzania, it has really worked well and building on what AGRA has done before. My point number 3 is around the importance of local fabrication for mechanized tools. If you are thinking about, of course, technology is not just seed, it also includes mechanization. We have found, for example, in the mango value chain, when we started promoting the harvesting tool for mangoes, you know, many mangoes in Africa, we shake the trees so that the fruits can fall. But in the mango value chain, we have found when we started the work 2 years ago, a harvesting tool was going for $20, but using local fabrication, we've been able to bring down the cost to about $3 to $4, that making it more cheaper for them to be able to buy. A key thing that I did not see very powerfully come out from the framework was around access to finance. We can have all the technologies that we need, and especially the high-end technologies, which cost a little bit more. But that feels like in the YieldWise initiative, that has really been our pain, because we don't seem to have figured out a very good model for financing technologies. It works very well when you have an end-to-end, which is very closed loop, where you have a buyer ready, you have the farmers aggregated and all that. But I think as you think about TAAT and how you scale up innovations, you must think about the finance piece. The 5th point is around use of digital media. I know traditionally we have focused too much on the farmer training, but as we continue working with the farmers, one of the key things that is coming up, all of us own a cell phone. In the village, my grandmother, who is 80 years, owns a cell phone. So how can we use more high-end digital media, whether it's the cell phones, whether it's the videos, and all the other technologies, and some of these that we are using already in the value chain. And my last point is around the need to continually innovate. I know with TAAT we are talking about moving technologies which already exist, but I'll challenge you. If you are working in, I'm not sure whether tomato is one of the crop that is going to be promoted, but I want to give you an example. The document talks about tuta absoluta being a problem. Yes, it is. It was a problem in 2016. You can produce all the tomatoes you want. In Nigeria, produces 1.8 million metric tons, and demand is 2.5. But half of that produce is lost. So, and when I look at the technologies that exist, most of the technologies are either farm, and they just end after the farm. But if you look at what happens after the farmer's harvest, for example, if you are traveling from Kano and you're bringing in a 20-foot truck, by the time you travel from Kano to Abuja, you have lost about 40%. Why? Because there is very little innovation, little technologies in terms of logistics for tomatoes. So thinking about how do you stretch ourselves in terms of looking at, for example, refrigerated trucks, which are solar powered. So as you think about technologies, let's not just put ourselves in a box, but let's think about also what is it that can be done more. So on behalf of the Rockefeller Foundation, we are pleased to have been invited to join you. And I cannot say I have a basket of goods saying, here we are going with you. But as my previous speaker said, we're just going to continue exploring how best we can work with you. And as I finish, I would say that let's take the technologies from the lab to the land. Thank you.
Please, a round of applause again to Betty for... She reminded us that we should reflect on 6 key themes. I'm sure that we took those points together as we reflect on how we are going to implement TAAT going forward. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me find out from the House if we have a representative from USAID. Do we? Silence, that means none. Okay. At this point, let me invite Dr. Chris Zakem, the TAAT program, from the TAAT program management unit, to give us the workshop objectives. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you very much, Godwin. I take this opportunity to welcome everybody. It's very exciting to be changing themes. This is the 5th time we are getting together to talk about TAAT. And for 3 occasions, we're in this very hall, and we're all talking about formulation. 2 weeks ago, it finally happened because we switched gears and then went on to start talking about how can we implement the project when we started with the inception meeting. So I'm really pleased that we are finally at a stage where we can start talking about implementation. And I'm looking forward to us getting into that level. All the previous meetings have some objectives. All of us have a copy of the program in our folder. So my role is very simple. I just want to highlight exactly what we have in that program that we want to have achieved when we leave here in the next 3 days by way of workshop objectives. Basically, for every new program, we have to inaugurate it, we have to launch it. That's where we brought our national partners here. That's where we brought all our partners to basically say, yes, we're at the start. Let's inaugurate the program, let's launch it so that we can move forward. And this opening session is doing exactly that. Then the next very important thing is to review the compact briefs of the concept notes that have been developed. And the director referred to that. And thank you very much for the response within a couple of days that you were able to submit something. So we have a chance here now to review what you were able to hurriedly put together so that we can refine it and basically have a document on which we can build on to implement TAAT. So basically we're going to be fine-tuning the work plans to deliver on the country levels on the compacts that have been put together. And then we need to develop work plans and budgets for year 1 for the first year of TAAT, so that once we leave here, we'll get to work immediately and start doing what we need to do. And then on the 5th focus is to finalize those compacts, bringing together all the inputs that we've gotten from all the discussions that we shall be having, so that at the end of the day, we go back with a finalized document which basically give us a guide on how we are going to implement this program. And very importantly, the very last work, TAAT is going to be implemented at country level by teams working together. This is an opportunity for us to network, interact, and get to know each other from the different countries so that we can develop jointly. So I hope that at the end of the day, at the end of the 3 days, that last one in particular would have been achieved so that we can basically focus and deliver at scale what we plan to do in TAAT. So that's, in a nutshell, again, it's a summary of what you have in your program. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chris, for sharing the objectives of this meeting with us. I'll quickly go over to Dr. Jonas Chiano, the Chief Agricultural Economist and TAAT Program Coordinator, to give us an overview of the TAAT program. A round of applause to Dr. Chiano as he comes up.
Thank you very much, Gordy. And I want to join all the earlier speakers to welcome you to this important meeting. And I will start by craving the indulgence of those who have listened to this presentation about a week and a half ago. However, we are going to try to spice it up so that it's not a kind of repetition completely of what they have heard. But we decided to make an elaborate presentation because of the interest of those who have not heard. And again, it does not harm to re-emphasize what is important until it becomes something that is more like a cliche in our ears, and then we just get ready to do the right thing, and then to change the narratives of African agriculture. Having said that, I would like to indicate that we just want to give a background information on this particular program, and upfront talk about some of the key opportunities in there before I go into the framework proper, and then talk about the issues of governance, delivery, and integrity that will lead us to where we want to go, and say a few things about some of the takeaway from the inception meeting that took place on the 9th and 10th of January in Abidjan. Now, everybody here knows the magnitude of food insecurity and malnourishment in Africa. So, and that is exactly why we are here, to try to solve those problems. The figures are clear. I don't want to go into repetitions of those figures, but the important thing is that if we don't do anything, we're going to face a situation whereby the major economic gains that we have seen in recent years in Africa will be rolled back. So, low agricultural productivity and value addition, they are actually at the heart of all these problems we are facing in the areas of malnutrition, unemployment, and income challenges in Africa. And it is not again saying when somebody says that African agriculture is underperforming, because look at a sector that is employing 50 to 70% of the population, but contributes just 25% to the GDP of Africa. And that's why we're here to see how we can change these narratives. Now, my director has told us stories about what happened in Asia. Asia was in this kind of situation we are in now in the 1960s. And because of the work that was done by institutions, the CGIARs, they were able to come out of it. And then the Asian countries worked with these centers to be able to provide the resources that they require. And that's exactly what we need to do in Africa. Work with countries, take the technologies to scale, change productivity, and address issues of market, and everybody will be happy. Unemployment will cease, malnutrition will cease, and this is exactly the way to go. And for those of us who are fortunate to be part of this, history will not forget us if we get it done. You see, Norman Bullock is long dead, but you see his name lives. Everybody talks about the work he did in Asia. He persevered to the Indian parliament. That thing he believed in, that would change the narratives. People thought that the story of Malthus in economics, who said that the only thing that can solve the problem of population growth is problems, misery. But he was able to change it. And that is what science is about. Now, the good thing is that the technologies exist in Africa, but they have to be widely and largely scaled up. And these technologies are some of these ones we have chosen in the compass we're working on. And the ones we're able to scale them up, we're able to address all these issues of malnutrition and issues of unemployment. And there is a saying that Africa has more technologies today than Asia had when the Green Revolution took place there. So why don't we now capitalize on what we have and then change the narratives of African agriculture? Now, somebody will ask, why has it that this scaling not taking place all this while in Africa? Well, all of us here, we know that we have lacked coordination to be able to have the kind of platform that we are now talking about, to be able to move these technologies to now start having impact at scale. So, and the long technology verification and release system that Malu was talking about, that Martin talked about, all of these things because of boundaries, national boundaries. But unfortunately, the problem we are facing doesn't know national boundaries. If you take, for instance, the Fall Army War, it doesn't need a visa to move. It just goes. You can seal all your borders. It doesn't stop you from moving. So we have to come up with policies that will help us to start addressing problems regionally, agroecologically, and following commodity belts. And that is when the scientists will have the chance of thinking beyond the box. We have looked at some of the tables you produced in the compacts, and we say, okay, we are getting there, but we need to think more a little bit about agroecological approach, because that was one of the strong bases why the bank approved this program, because some of these agroecologies are contiguous, and once you have found an application that works, it means you can use it. Like if you talk about the savannas, for instance, we have about 400 million hectares of it in Africa. So some of these solutions you discover that can work in one place, can work elsewhere, maybe by you just remove a little other constraints. So now, of course, the representative of the Rockefeller Foundation talked about the importance of the private sector. The private sector is important. Where they have not developed, we have to find a way of kind of facilitating the development of the private sector, incentivizing them to come into what we are doing. And then people talk of weak policies and regulatory environments. Yes, unfortunately, these are there, but we will capitalize on that to be able to kind of strengthen some of those things. And of course, there has been insufficient effort to really decisively take these technologies to scale. And of course, limited government investment in the agriculture sector, which we can see from this Malabo Declaration and the contributions that different countries make to agriculture. Only very few countries have been able to get up to the 10% mark. Now, it is good to bear in mind a few things. And I think we need to know that TAAT is not a CGIAR initiative. And you will see that more clearly from the structure. And however, the CGs are leading, but they have to work with others. And TAAT has an independent clearinghouse, and that independence is with respect to the project management unit and also with respect to IITA. It is good to know this. IITA is coordinating, but the decision making is not rested on IITA. So nobody should say we have not performed because IITA is dominating. So you have the freedom to do your work, and then you don't think IITA is interfering. Another important thing to know is that TAAT is not SART-SC. However, the lessons learned from SART-SC, for those who don't know, that acronym means Support to Agricultural Research for Strategic Crops in Africa, which was an earlier funded project by the bank to support 4 of the 6 commodities of the African Union, implemented by 4 CG centers, IITA, IITA, Africa Rice, and IFPRE. But in that particular work, we did research, we did dissemination, we did capacity building. But TAAT is not for research, it's for dissemination. So in that respect, they are very different programs. Now, we will have massive opportunity to change things in TAAT if we ensure that the compass and the clearinghouse are well constituted, and there is a full buy-in and participation of the regional member countries of the bank, the African countries, working with the regional, sub-regional organizations, and even the economic organizations of the different regions. And if we aggressively participate in the formulation of country programs, why it is important is this. If we take a sideline and then you allow the countries to formulate it, and then they finish formulating it, and they are not able to tap the powers of science, technology, innovation, then they will keep getting the same productivity that is disincentivizing, that will make people to think that agriculture is the last resort, and that will make the youths, the women, to think of other alternatives and only go to agriculture as the last resort. So, but if we join them in that particular journey, we are able to convince them to bring to bear the power of science and technology. And at the end of the day, everybody will be happy. So, our board is keen on what we do on TAAT, and they are following. They want us to be making periodic presentations to them. They have told us that TAAT is a high-profile program, and I can tell you, even the SART-SC was a high-profile program, and the board also wanted us to be making presentations to them, and which we did, but after a while, they got convinced that we were on the right direction, and they left us. But with respect to TAAT, it is particularly important because if we do not convince the board of the African Development Bank early enough, it is going to have a negative effect on the upcoming TAAs. So that is what we have to bear in mind while we work. And what again does that mean? It means that speed is of essence. We are sorry that sometimes when we fix a meeting, we give little notice. It's just also because we are interested in that speed. So let us all try to embrace that. Now, this is just that we want to work with the CG centers, their partners, the private sector to move this process. And the result will be a regional technology delivery infrastructure with emphasis on agroecological zones and priority commodities that will reach 40 to 50% of African farmers with the most relevant food production technologies by 2025. There are many opportunities in TAAT. One is to tap the strategic alliance of the collaboration among the development partners, the World Bank, African Development Bank, AGRA, BMGF, Rockefeller Foundation, you have heard from them, IFAD. Even though Malu thinks that they are coming behind, you are not coming behind, you have been part of this. Your staff at Abuja, they have been part of this journey for a long time. But what I think I understand from what you say that you want to intensify, and we are looking forward to that. We're going to hold all the necessary meetings with you to be able to get our axes together. Now, development of a matrix on how the development partners are working together. This is important. We talked about it during the Abidjan meeting, and we all agreed, 6 of 6 development partners were there. We all agreed to channel resources together, even though it is parallel financing. What is important is that we are all adding to, working towards achieving the same objective. Now, TAAT is an important step to advancing food security, nutrition, and health of African people. And TAAT hopes to mobilize over 1 billion. I want to repeat this. Over 1 billion towards its scaling up of agricultural technologies. And that is why in the compact we are developing, one of the important steps you have to think about is how do you tap into the existing resources of the World Bank, of AGRA, of also IFAD that Malu just talked about. And all the members of the Strategic Alliance, they have played a key role in the conceptualization of TAAT. And the DPs have also committed to significant resources. So innovation is important. We have to be innovative on how to really get these resources. And not think that the seed money, the money you are seeing now is what we call seed money. The bulk of the money is still there to be tapped. So we have to find ways of tapping this. And that will, of course, allow the donors to work together through the regional technology development infrastructure for appropriate technology to be developed to millions of farmers across agroecological zones. TAAT will bring to bear joint collective efforts of international, regional, and national agricultural systems to improve connections between research, extension, and reform regulatory systems that impede the transfer of technologies across borders, like I said earlier. Of course, the fact that this thing has happened in Asia tells us that it can happen here. It happened in Asia, it happened in Latin America. Martin told us stories of India, told us stories of Brazil. The cerrados are inherently not better than our savannas. So if it could work there through science, then it means it can work here. It's a big challenge to all of us who are working in these environments to be able to tap into the power of science to change things, and we can do that. That allows us, more importantly, to go over Africa's internal borders, different governments, different languages, phytosanitary controls, seed certification processes and the likes, and spread technologies to reach millions of people. Now, it is a new approach that is needed. This is more like a repetition because it can cross boundaries. But what is important is that it will help us for a faster uptake of technologies. And this is exactly what TAAT is about. And it is going to work in concert with other initiatives to foster deployment of commercially viable technologies with improved access to market and other related enablers. Yes, we might not be focusing on markets, but we are not ambivalent to market development. So what it means is that as we are working, we are going to be collaborating with all the initiatives that address issues of market. Because if you don't address the issue of market, you are not going to go anywhere. And my director used to say that when it comes to crops, that the most important fertilizer for crops is market. It is not that market is fertilizer, but the fact that if you have a disincentive along the way, you can't go anywhere. So, inclusivity. We have all heard about issues of gender disparities, but that will have to give us an opportunity to address this. And of course, deploy only reliable technologies and innovations that surely work. This is important, and that's why I underlined it. Surely work. You know, when I was in research, and people talk of baskets of options, I always say, look, before you develop that basket of options, consider the options that will go into that basket. So that even a blind person dips his or her hand into that basket of options, whatever option the person picks is already good. So what it means is that the technologies we should showcase will be the ones that will not disappoint the farmers. Because these are the technologies because you are trying to arouse, not just arouse, but also hold the interest of the farmers. So you have to use the power of science, your knowledge, to be able to do this. So this is critical. Now, I am now going to the framework itself. Please, my presentation is a bit long, but I'll finish soon. Now, between the time we came here for appraisal and now, the structure of TAAT has changed completely, like you will see. Both in terms of the background information and the storyline which you have had, and which my director also talked about, the overall approach, agroecological, commodity belt, and trying to break some of these boundaries. And of course, critically, the components change. You know, if you are doing a midterm review for a project, if you change the components, you have to go back to the board. So the fact that we change the components from what you used to know about component 1 being production, productivity and competitiveness, component 2 being the enablers, component 3 being project management and coordination. But now component 1 is creation of enabling environment. Component 2 is about regional technology delivery infrastructure. Component 3 is about that, which is deployment of appropriate technologies, and component 4 is about project management and coordination. So governance structure, everything changed. So we have a new project. The objective is to raise productivity and production through identification and deployment of appropriate technologies, including the nutrient-dense crop varieties and vigorous crop outreach campaigns, extension, market linkages campaign in the whole of the RMCs of the bank, and facilitating effective delivery of technologies to farmers at scale, working with existing research centers in a new platform, the regional technology delivery infrastructure, and of course, creating an enabling environment to ensure that those technologies get adopted at farm level. Now, I have mentioned these components, so let me go over it. It's the same thing I have just talked about. Now, the design, it's important to pay attention to this. TAAT has 2 planks. The centrally managed operations, which is the seed fund we're talking about, and the subsequent country programs. And let me pause a little bit to say that it is because of these country programs that our staff from the bank, from different regions are here. You heard when my director was calling on Muldi, Taruni, and Mohamed Tolba, and then Lewis Bangwe. These are people who will help us when they get back to their stations to become important drum majors to speak about the TAAT and how we're going to leverage on what is going to happen in the countries. The former, which now is the centrally managed activities, will catalyze and the delivery of benefits, and then the latter is going to work on the country programs, and then further to be further financed by the bank and its partners, the World Bank, IFAD, AGRA, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and others. Now, it is important to situate TAAT within Feed Africa. For Feed Africa to succeed, it must achieve 2 goals. Number 1 goal is to raise productivity significantly. Number 2 goal is to move African production much higher on the value chain, with agribusinesses producing and selling processed goods, not simply basic commodities that we do today for most of the commodities we produce. So TAAT aims at goal number 1, but we have other flagships that support the Feed Africa implementation that aim at goal number 2. So you can see that clearly TAAT is the bedrock of Feed Africa. Now, if you want to situate TAAT in the continuum of agricultural commodity value chain development, if you take development to mean the value chain to imply input suppliers, primary production, first level processing, and second level processing, and then distribution and marketing, you find that TAAT is situated within the first 3, and that also underscores the importance of this particular program. Now, the priority interventions and technologies. We have overall 8 priority interventions in TAAT: self-sufficiency in rice production, cassava intensification, food and nutrition security in the Sahel, transforming the savannas into bread baskets, revitalizing tree plantations, expanding horticulture, and increasing food production in Africa, and achieving self-sufficiency in fish production. Now, this is the overall TAAT. But the quick wins we are working on now, we work on rice, and we work on cassava for industrialization, and then work on sorghum and millet for the Sahel food security, and then small livestock will be within the savannah bread basket, and of course also maize efficient maize for Africa, and then the orange-fleshed sweet potato, and then high iron beans for Africa, and then wheat and aquaculture. Now, we have some fundamental guiding principles of TAAT. And so when you are developing your compacts, you have to pay attention to this. One is that technology matters. Without technology, we're going to be doing farming. So what we will be doing is not agricultural science. We're just doing farming that doesn't require science at all. So technology matters. So we have to mobilize technologies. Then scale matters. And this one, I really want to emphasize this. When I saw some of the preliminary work we have done, it does not seem to me that the issue of the fact that scale matters has sunk. So we need to continue to ensure that there is scale in what we do. Policy and regulatory environment matter. And partnerships and collaboration, very important, because the result you get when you partner is always better than the one you can get individually. And we are going to minimize competition because collaboration is always better. Let us not align our minds to competing for resources. Let us find a way of collaborating and make use of these resources we have efficiently. Now, this is just about those 2 planks in the funding, the centrally managed and the country programs. But what I think is important here is to show you how it looks like. What the money we have now is, I don't know if does this work? The pointer, okay. The money we have now is about this. The centrally managed is here. And then the ABF will continue for the 3 tiers, which we have more or less secured. But for the country programs, this is where the meat is. And that is why we must work with the World Bank, with AGRA, with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, with IFAD, to tap into those country programs. It is only when you do this, then we start talking about the 1 billion. Now, I have presented this in a different way, but the only thing I want to show, but again, it's not for anybody to take any credit, it's just to show who contributed what in this tier, just to show that the African Development Bank so far has contributed about 73% of the total funding, and then Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, through support to the clearinghouse, about 2%, and then AGRA is going to, when you leverage it, will contribute about 18.1%, and then the RMCs will contribute about 7.3%, but this is in kind. So let's take advantage of that. So when you're asking them for land, or you're asking them for office space, you have to attribute this because it's important for us to show that our regional member countries, they are supporting this program. Now, this is an important table because the importance of this table is just look at column 2 and column 4. Column 2 is where we are. Column 4 is where we are going. But you can see column 3 is important, but you see it's higher than where we are going because these are what you can attain for productivity when everything is working and everybody has embraced what it's supposed to do in terms of good agricultural practices. But what is important and encouraging is that where we are going is we are doubling the situation from where we are coming in all cases. So that is important. And overall, we want to add 120 million tons of additional food in what is available in Africa. And that is what the last column is depicting, and by different commodities. Now, we were happy to hear from our IFAD colleague that the expected outcomes of TAAT aligns with the kind of thing they want to do. And of course, I recap it, talking about productivity, talking about production, and talking about food security, and talking about income. And of course, we want to change the income. We're targeting about 12 million families, households, and of course, create about 3.2 million jobs, and then 120 million metric tons of additional food, and reach about 40 million people in total. Take them out of poverty. Now, some people used to ask, what is the value added of TAAT? TAAT can leverage crop and livestock technologies that have been developed and validated in one country or few countries across the entire agroecological zone, covering many countries. And then you can see the example with WEMA that can be deployed in other countries. Perhaps the best demonstration of the value of TAAT, the value added, is the issue of the fall armyworm that devastating many countries in Africa now. Now, sustainability is not something we will discuss that without going into. And how will it happen? It will happen through a strong linkage between research and extension, through a strong linkage of farmers to the market. So you can see we're not ambivalent to the issue of market, like I said earlier, and making sure that demand and supply are integrated, also to address the issue of market. And then, of course, think about the best policies that will accompany the lofty objectives we have. And of course, commitment of countries, very important. Now, I'm not going to say so much about this slide, but just to underscore the importance of reporting in TAAT, very important. Very, very important to report what you are doing. Well, let me go back to this. You know, when I was in research, when donors fund African institutions and provide the same level of funding to Asian institutions, one of the things that they always say is that they get 3 times more reports from Asia than they get from Africa. So this has to change. Let us make sure that we report. But again, there are 3 types of scientists. Some over-report, some report exactly what they have done, some under-report themselves. But I think for us, we are not interested in over-reporting, but let us just report exactly what we have done is enough. Okay, so governance. The regional technology delivery infrastructure has 4 main parts. Part 1 is the project steering committee. Part 2 is the clearinghouse. Part 3 is the commodity technology delivery compact, the one you have been working on. And of course, I indicated that the CGs will be working with others, but I included the DPs, development partners, because when you want to talk to the countries, some of the ways of brokering, some of the difficulties could be by liaising with the DPs. So that's why I put the DPs, very important. If you need them, you can leverage on this. And of course, when it comes to the compact, we have the different players there. So I don't want to go into that. We already know that that's exactly why we're here. So many players, and of course the project management unit. Now, some of their key activities are as follows. For the project steering committee, they will be composed of NARES representatives, representatives of the African ministers, the private sector, and then various CG centers and farm organizations. And the PSC is the highest decision-making body of TAAT, the highest. They have to provide oversight function to the regional technology delivery infrastructure, and they have to clear all the work programs prior to funding. The membership of the PSC has to be approved by the bank. With respect to the clearinghouse will be working on reviewing proposals based on some agreed criteria. They also have to provide oversight on implementation. And they have to make decisions on new technologies to be deployed, and also the mechanisms of reaching millions of farmers and other stakeholders along the value chains. Like I said before, it is independent of the PMU and also of IITA. With respect to the commodity technology development compact, the one you have been working on, it is the core. It is the heart of TAAT. It is an agreement of the entire ecosystem of actors that you need to deliver improved technologies at scale for the different commodity value chains So you can see it is very important. And then it has to support the regional member countries to prepare proposals for that will use some of the technologies available. And of course, it is hosted by the different institutions that lead different commodities. So that is with respect to the CTDC. Now the PMU, their major functions will be reporting and accounting, and also overseeing day-to-day implementation of program fiduciary and administrative activities. When it comes to governance at country levels, the Ministry of Agriculture and the NARES will be the primary executing agency for country programs and an oversight role for some of the regional programs. At the regional level, day-to-day management of the commodity compacts of activities by the clearinghouse will be undertaken by the lead institutions or centers and their collaborators. It is important to note that the recruitment of additional experts required to implement TAAT or provide short-term business services will go through competitive processes as per the rule of the financing entity. What I mean here, if the African Development Bank is financing, you have to go by the rule of the African Development Bank. If it is AGRA, you have to go by the rule of AGRA. If it is IFAD, you have to go by the rule of IFAD. If it is the World Bank, you have to go by the rule of the World Bank. But I think competition is important because it removes the air of somebody trying to be favored unnecessarily when you don't have to. I don't want to go into this because I have mentioned it, but I just want to say something about this. That this thing we call compact, we already started doing even before these new ones we are formulating, and then we did it for rice, the CIPRISA program, which is a continental rice initiative, and also with the TASI. TASI is the Transformation of African Savannah Initiative of the bank also. And then the kind of thing they do, CIPRISA is going to be coordinating self-sufficiency in rice, and then TASI will be talking about transformation of African savannas into full baskets. And then this is just what I said, so let me not go back to it. And then this is the process of origination, review, decision-making that you guys have been working on your compass, so I don't want to go into that. But let me present the last two slides. And this is some of the key takeaway messages that came from the inception meeting at Abidjan. And I think it's important. People felt that we should move away from the logic of competition for resources and move closer to driving for results, that collaboration is better. So we have to be seen doing this. People, I mean, this is clear that the funding we have now is just seed money that you need to use to leverage larger resources. And that irrespective of the amount of funds available, we need to learn how to leverage and how to mobilize resources. And I think it is important, especially if I were the persons that will judge the performance of people who are participating in this program, I think fundraising is important because the funds are there. It's just a matter of aligning what you want to do with what the fund wants to do. And we are going to do all kinds of mapping that will enable people to do what is right for different donors. We will do that. And then some people thought that we have talked so much, talk, that it is time to hit the ground and run. So we need to do that because a quick proof that TAAT can work will open channels for resources. We had this from Dr. Gema Audu of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We have had it from the board of African Development Bank, the World Bank, everybody. So what it means is that we need to show results to be able to tap resources that are available. People don't want to put resources when they are not sure what will come. And then we have to make sure that the countries do not see TAAT as something that is alien to them, but must see TAAT as their own. This is important because that is when they can make requests for loan if they see it as their own and something that is of value to them. So we have to stop at nothing to making sure that the NARES, I mean the countries see TAAT as their own program and something they can use to change the fortune of their countries, change unemployment situation, change food insecurity, change malnutrition, and increase the profile of women. So, and the culture of working together cannot be overemphasized. That is the only way we can deliver at scale. Now, it is important to understand the essence of the compacts, because the CGs alone cannot deliver that on the scale that is required. And there is need to work with government and private sector, which is key when you want to scale up. Now, fundable concept notes only come from compacts. So if you are not working through compacts, you don't even have anything in that. And we must try to be innovative and compelling when we are arguing for our compacts. Now, there is an agreement that there is need for the regional activities to start linking to the country activities or vice versa. Getting support from the latter, that is the regional, is very important for the former, and especially with respect to creating the right enabling environment. And when we talk about TAAT, like now we are representatives of different organizations, different countries, we have to talk about that with passion. So people should see the passion in you, because that is one of the things you can use to convince them. But if you talk about that laissez-faire-ishly, people will not take you serious. However, we don't want exaggeration, but just remain with what that can do. Use simple languages and make sure you respect what the end user is interested in. Now, results-oriented approach and strong results framework to capture vision of success and hold each other accountable. Very important. Our colleagues from AGRA, they have emphasized this. Our colleagues from the World Bank have emphasized this, so we just need to do that. Now, we have to spread the news about that. We have to go outside the box to talk about that, because there's a danger in not doing that. The danger is somebody can be talking about TAAT to a donor, maybe because he wants the donor to support that, and the donor have not had this. Even among our colleagues at the bank, we want to make sure that we hold seminars to make sure that what our director said before as making sure that all country programs coming up have support of science when it comes to value chains. That came from our board. Subsequent projects that went to board after that, they have been asking them, how is TAAT in this? So we have to make sure that all the things we do in countries, TAAT is part of it. Now, our colleagues from the World Bank noted that there is need for communication for development, that it does not yet happen with most of the projects, and I think I agree with them. And there is need for an overhaul. Let me not call it change of mindset, an overhaul of mindset. You know, you can never achieve a big thing if you continue to think small, small. No. That is not how the world is configured. Whatever the mind can think of and believe in, you can achieve. Let us not be our own constraints. Let us really think outside the box and get this stuff done. Thank you very much.
Please, let's give a round of applause again to Dr. Jonas Chiano for giving an explicit overview of TAAT. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, having listened to a wonderful overview, please, this is the time for 3 comments or questions on this overview if you have that you want to ask before we move forward. Okay.
I think I was searching for clarity on what is the compact. What is the nature of the compacts? And when you, I just wanted to clarify as well, is it the case that the only concept notes that will be reviewed by the clearinghouse are those submitted by compacts? Thank you.
Okay, you can respond from there, Jonas? Yeah.
Definitely. Let me say something. That one of the reasons why I will come back to what is compact, why the World Bank decided to be part of the funding of the clearinghouse, is because they also think that it will help with technologies that are coming in South-South cooperation, so that these things don't just go into the system before anybody looks at it. Then with respect to compacts, what we're thinking about in this compact is just an ecosystem. You know, people have different names, but what is important is to make sure that we have a critical mass of people who will ensure that the content of what is planned is comprehensive and complete, and that no important player is left out, and that the roles of the different players are all well separated. There won't be in such a way that there's no competition. But the most important thing is to be able to have a team that will deliver at scale, that have all it takes to deliver at scale. Thank you, Joe.
Okay. Oh, Patrick?
Yeah, please, can you put back slide number 31 to add some flavor to what my colleague had just said. 31. Yes. No, 31, go forward. Leave it there. If we take this properly, get a copy to everybody, most of the answers will be coming from this particular slide. It is so different from the way that we have done things. We talked about SADC not being TAAT, or TAAT not being SADC. Mere looking at this is quite new to so many people, but we are all in there. The issue of the compact, they are all there. The issue of the clearinghouse, they are all there. So we will keep this particular slide very useful as we try to understand the implementation that we are putting in place here. Maybe from here we might have some other discussions and get to better understand this very well. And that is why we have said IITA is not the one going to implement this program. Implementation will be very far away from IITA. In fact, the clearinghouse is to be stationed in, is it not Benin Republic? Very far away from IITA here. But the PMU at the bottom here will remain here. So let's keep on looking at this particular slide as we get to understand this concept better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment or question? Yeah, Dr. Sanyege.
Yeah, I believe the question Joe asked is very important for you to respond to that. We have three enablers. We have policy, we have capacity building, and we have enable that's the youth. What is missing is the deliverable enabler. How are we going to deliver and to get an institution that is really quite strong in that, because it's going to happen in all value chain. So I'd like to submit that AGRA probably should play that role, because at the end, that's what will matter. It's going to be about dissemination. It's going to be about linking up with the private sector, the public sector, working in space, all the adoption, the input, and all kind of things. So it will be very important that there is a concept note coming from AGRA on how that is going to be done. That is missing.
Thank you. All right. Okay, the last one.
Good morning. I need more clarification on private sector. It's a bit vague from the presentation I've seen so far, and I think to ensure the success of this program, the continuity of it and the scalability of the program, we need to clearly define what we mean when we say private sector and the role they will play in the whole program as a whole.
Jonas, response?
Well, I think he is right that it's good to define the role of the private sector. But what I have seen so far from the compass we have received is that they have actually indicated some of the private sectors. But I believe also that by the time they finish developing the different compacts, the role will come out. And of course, any compact that doesn't have a clear role of non-private sector, I'm not sure it will pass. Because like we said, the clearinghouse, they will have a set of criteria that is required for the different concept notes to pass. And one important thing I think I need to mention here is the fact that the compacts, they don't have to work at the same place. Any compact that is ready to go can start. The ones that have not finished can continue until they finish. So that is one good thing, so that it doesn't mean, because we are not, the fund has been approved for us. So the fund is there. So any compact that finishes developing and then the proposal they have is accepted by the clearinghouse, then I think they can start. But those issues that we indicated in the outline with respect to what different compacts need to do, they have to really take them one by one. I was looking at them yesterday. When it comes to background, you have background in all cases. When it comes to rationale, you have rationale in all cases. When it comes to vision of success, you have it, but it is not complete. I have a matrix on it. And then when it comes to objectives, you have objectives in all cases. But when it comes to targeted countries, you have them in all cases. But we are here to understand the basis for some of those decisions. And of course, I put up a table, but I don't want to put it before your presentations, where we are going to capture what is happening where. And then we need to check it again with the countries where AGRA works, the countries where the World Bank works, and all these are our development partners, to start mapping things together, and then see if there are countries that have been left out completely. Then we agree on how to outreach those countries. And then when it comes to brief description of activities, you have it for some activities, you don't have it for others. But our aim is that by the time we leave, these things will almost be getting close, because now you're going to be discussing it a little bit again with the countries. Expected outcomes, not complete in all cases. Collaborators is where we are going to be checking about this private sector thing and all the different people you need. So, and then it's not just about just putting down that you're going to work with a particular private sector. You have to contact them. They have to be part of this. In fact, they have to become one of those who sell that. Okay? Timelines. Incomplete in most cases. Global budgets. We have got the budgets in some cases. Not the budgets are there, but the budget notes are not there, so it's not easy to understand the budget. Of course, annexes. So you have to really make sure you follow these outlines, because I believe that the completeness of the concept note is also very important. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Sangita.
Yeah, well, I think I'm every time uneasy when we talk about the private sector, because the mindset is that we bring the private sector because it's going to come and put some resources here. But here is an opportunity for the private sector, for example, to take advantage of the private sector window of funding in the bank. There are different ways of working. I have a friend here who is a businessman, and I convinced him Topway to come and spend 2 days here. He's in the fish industry, big funders of the youth here. I'm just enticing him because of this program, probably he can move to Congo and start making money in Congo just through that program. So the private sector is not, you're not going to call him, or we're going to be obliged to have them here because we're expecting something from them. On the contrary, we're giving them an opportunity to go and make more money. They need technologies as well and so on, right? I think that's the way I would like to approach the private sector.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sanginga, for that. And distinguished ladies and gentlemen, before we close this session, let me take 30 seconds to recognize some institutions that we have today. We have the Africa Rise, representatives from IUMI, we have ICRISAT, ILRI, and also the AATF, CIMIT, ICARDA, we have WorldFish, the young people, the IA, Youth in Agripreneurs. We also have people from TAAT, we have CIMIT, ISIPE, and CABI. We also have FARA, they're well represented. I think I've captured almost all, and also the colleagues from the private sector. We welcome you and thank you so much for your contributions. This conference is secured with CCTV. If you see over there, it is well secured. So that's a piece of good information. But we encourage you to take care of your personal effects like handsets as we move out in the next few seconds for a group photo and tea, coffee break. The photo will take place this way. The exit door is there by my left, so please let's go quickly, and we will be spending 15 minutes for this activity so that we come back. Thank you so much, and good morning. My name is Godwin.